Today we're going to look at how to fly a tarp using what's around us. So some sticks, a bipod, a Y in a tree, all that good bushcraft stuff. Just like anything else, there's 1,000 ways to fly a tarp. And when I say fly a tarp, what I mean is put it up so we have something up over our head, much like a pavilion in a sense, to keep us dry so we can work under and enjoy the outdoors, especially when it rains. Because if you come in the woods with me, 95% chance it's going to rain at some point throughout that trip. So knowing how to do this is always important. And this is also something you can just set up because it looks nice around camp and then just add the tarp whenever needed. First requirement, at least for this style project, is going to be some type of Y branch in the tree, or even just a branch sticking off a tree. If you're going to use a branch, just make sure it's stout enough and it's not going to break off once the setup gets set. Next thing you're going to need is some type of straight stick. This stick doesn't need to be super thick, but it needs to be long, longer than your tarp by about 3 or 4 feet. So I have an 8-foot tarp, so this thing is, I don't know, 10 feet maybe. And lastly, you're gonna need a bipod. You could get away with using a tripod for this, but we're gonna modify this shelter in future videos, so a bipod's gonna work all the better. Now, pretty simple. We're gonna set our bipod here. We're gonna take our big long stick, and then we're going to adjust it to the tree. So you can see that I made somewhat of a shelter. Now, what's important with this is, first of all, because it's only a bipod, we wanna make sure that we drive the legs down into the ground ever so slightly, just so it doesn't slide around. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that we want to make sure that we tie off this main ridge pole to our bipod and to whatever tree we are dealing with. That's also going to add some stability here. And then the last thing that we want to think about is to make sure that the front of this shelter system, which is going to be the bipod, is a bit higher than the back. That's going to allow the water to run out the back of the shelter and not forward, because we're going to need this front area for a project down the road. Once my tarp is on that main ridge pole, now it's time to just tie out each side. And then finally, with a little bit of moving, a little bit of grooving, and some long tie-outs, we have ourselves a tarp fly with a ridge pole. So this setup itself is very good for if you're gonna sit underneath, gonna get some work done, and you got some rain. Now, of course, any kind of driving rain or heavy winds might blow some water in. I mean, that's just a given. But if we just have a nice light rain coming down, we wanna sit and still work, this is gonna work out very, very well for us. We can always lower that if we want more, but I made it to a height that I'm comfortable that I can actually stand under here and get some work done. Now, a few key facts to remember with this style shelter. Number one, you don't want your roof perfectly flat because you don't want it to hold water. So you want some type of angle on it so as the water hits, it runs off the sides. And again, we want this front section higher than the back. And we're always going to consider the tree the back section. That way the water will run down the sides and off the back before it comes down off the front. Another thing that you're going to take in consideration is you're going to need 4 large ridge lines for this, because each end is individually going to get tied out. And a lot of times those tie outs are going to have to get stretched quite far to reach a tree. If they go all the way to the ground, that's fine, but you need to remember that's just going to add more steepness to that roof angle. So if you want it opened up the way I have it, you're going to have to stretch it out nice and far to other trees that are in the area. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is an alternate way to set up a fly using some sticks, a bipod, Y branch in a tree, or just a branch. So it's just adding more bushcraft skills together to come up with something that actually looks pretty nice and is very functional. So this was Dan Wolwack with Coalcracker Bushcraft. As always, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com. Until next video, fly your tarp, stay in the woods.